So, so moving on. Serena Williams, I could make some rants and cuss.
I could go on forever about Serena
Revelations.
Williams. I could go on forever.
It's just funny, and I think at this point it truly is laughable. I think this just goes to show you the great lengths that white America will go to further try to keep us down and not recognize our accomplishments and make it all seem like, oh, black people are always calling about racism. Well, that's because
you know what? And I'm sure there are instances where people start to project things out there that may not be true. But the whole Williams sisters thing, that's been going on since.
It's been going on for decades.
Since they were since people knew who they were, 13, 14, whenever they came out and started playing, there has always been this attack on them and how they look.
First, their father for teaching them to speak up for themselves and be confident women. And everybody says, oh, you're teaching them to be arrogant. I'm like, why is it arrogant when black people have,
well, because because you're supposed to understand
because you're right. And white people, they're so confident and they've been brought up to think. But black people, we got to be arrogant about it. I stick up the middle finger on that because, I've been accused of that too. It's like, what? I can't be confident and speak with confidence and carry myself in confidence because it scares you?
It's a threat to people.
Yeah, it's a threat because you're insecure about who you are. Yeah. I could go on for days on that, but we all know what we know. And so.
Well, we do know. I mean, or we know because people have been putting it out there, and I forget the guy's name. Is she taking? I apologize for my phone ringing, but is she taking performance enhancing drugs? Is that why she's so big?
Crazy.
And you know what's so funny about that? I don't know how tall she is exactly. I know she's a tall woman.
She's 5'8", 5'9", right? Yeah,
she's got to be somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
I'm 5'3", but I have the musculature. Mm-hmm. That if I did weights, like for real, I'd be big.
I would be big too.
I'd be big because I just have that kind of muscle. That's the kind of muscle that I have. And my sister is more petite than I. And she could do the same sort of weightlifting and she'd be defined, but she wouldn't be as large as I am. I have bigger bones. I've got larger muscles than she does. And
it's not even about that.
It's not, but I think that but I feel like when people come out going, oh, you know what, she's got performance enhancing drugs. Look at how large she is.
Because they have to reconcile it in their mind.
In any way they want to. And I'm like,
she can't just be a great player.
Yeah, but when you look at all those other girls, it's clear that they're not doing the same kind of muscle weight training.
Right, she has a different regimen, and she's even shown that regimen. With her trainer, she's even shown with that regimen.
It's clear, and so I think that when you are comparing those type of body types, you go, you know what? You have an athlete who has chosen to train in a certain way, and it shows in what she's been able to accomplish that her regimen is working for her, honey. And maybe all those other girls need to rethink their regimen. They will not come to that place. And even Venus, no one's talking about Venus, but Venus's game is not what it is because Venus has an illness.
She has an illness, and her sister has always spoke up about that. And yet she still has, Serena said something about, her skill level and stuff like that. She still has the skill level that if she were in a better place health-wise, she'd
be slaying.
Yeah, she would be.
No, but I mean that when people come up and they see that kind of stuff, and you say to yourself, you're like, wait a second, you're talking about it's apples and oranges. You're talking about a woman who has an illness and it affects her game. And Serena doesn't have that issue, and Serena is a different body type.
Right.
And and you're absolutely right.
It will always be something.
It's just been hate from the very beginning.
That's why it's laughable. I'm sorry. I give no credence to any of this. I know we had to hit on it, but it's just laughable because it just solidifies what everybody already knows is that we are so not in a post-racial.
No, we are not. And we won't ever be.
Won't, no.
That's
the majority is the minority, and so that's scary for a lot of people because what once was the majority is now the minority. So.
And speaking on that, okay, so I had a conversation, and this may seem like it's out of the, it's not. It's very much connected. So I went to go meet with somebody, And I had a very interesting conversation. I had met with him before, a white male, and we start in on this conversation about, I had written him a letter. I don't want to say who this person is, but he's a coach of some sort. And I wrote him this letter telling him about himself because I had come to him and he was like, "Oh, you sound white."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And so I was like, and I wrote him this War and Peace letter. And I told him that, I'm certain that if a white person came to him and walked in with an Appalachian accent, he wouldn't he wouldn't be like, "Oh my God, you don't sound, you don't sound whatever." They wouldn't do the same thing. So then I decided to meet with him again because I wanted to have a deeper conversation, and we ended up having a deeper conversation because he had my email sitting up there, and because he wanted to touch some points of what I had said, and it was the most enlightening conversation I have had in a very long time.
Do tell.
So he was very upset because he felt very misunderstood. And then he went on to let me know that he was very angry because he felt that as a white male, he is not able to speak his mind, and that he is always being attacked, and that we can't live in this society where white people feel like they were on attack and that they're going to be called a racist, even though I hadn't called him a racist in any line of the email. But I just found it really interesting that he felt very attacked. He could tell me about my white voice and how excited he was about, I mean, there was an obvious, like, this is, you're really lucky that you don't have that kind of accent. And then he went on to tell me about, I think I told you about O.J. Simpson, how he had met O.J. Simpson, and how O.J. Simpson spoke one way, but when he went to Brown Brothers, he spoke a whole other kind of way.
Yeah.
And he went on to tell me that he really wanted me to know that that was more of a compliment than being a disparaging comment. We went on and on.
That's hilarious.
And it's totally hilarious. So then we went on and on. But you talk about feeling as though, but it's what you say. It's like, it's heavy is the head that wears the crown. Okay.
I mean, on the one hand, you're saying that this white male has told you that he feels, attacked, and he can't speak his mind. And however, on the flip side, you're writing that email. If you had said all that vocally, and probably even just in his reading your email, you then are pegged as aggressive.
That's exactly.
As too sensitive, as, come on, we get.
And that was the further conversation that we had, was everybody is so incredibly sensitive. And I was like, you're right, people are sensitive. We live in a world where people have greater sensitivities, but we also live in a world where people are being forced to respect other people that they've never respected before. And it doesn't feel good when you're running around saying whatever you want to say to people, because that is the power that you have been given, that you can say whatever you want off the cuff, and people are like having to be quiet and having to internalize what you are free to say. So then we got into the conversation of freedom of speech, you see, because his freedom of speech is being hindered. But the one thing that he said to me that was so interesting was, he was like, you don't understand how many white people aren't hiring black people anymore because they're so afraid of being labeled racist. And I was like, are you serious? White people
is some bull.
Okay, I said, are you serious? White people aren't hiring black people because they're afraid of being.
They're afraid of them?
If they have an issue with that black person, maybe they have to fire them or whatever, that they're going to have to be, they are afraid that they are going to be called a racist for it. And so I said to him, look, first of all, people can hurl any accusations they want at you, but you have to be able to prove some stuff. Just because you call somebody a racist, just because you call people things, doesn't mean that they're true. So if I accuse you of that and you are my employer, I have to prove that what you have done.
Well, I have been on that end of things. Let me tell you, when I worked in corporate America, in healthcare, and let me just say this. I am not saying that everybody's a racist. I am, however, saying that the corporate organizational structure, it kind of lends itself to that behavior.
And why wouldn't it?
But why wouldn't it? Protects it. Yes, it protects it. it actually encourages it in some off the way kind of deal. And it's really funny that he says that, because you won't hire me because either A, you think I do have too much confidence and that might rub the other people in the office the wrong way.
Okay.
Or B, and I'm just saying from experience,
Mm-hmm.
or B, you have a culture already set up, and I may not fit into
and that's
that
my
particular
point.
culture.
To have a culture set.
That's seriously, because that kind of it's all in corporate America. That kind of behavior is inbred, and they actually institutionalize it. The department I worked in, when I worked in healthcare, you had a director who I reported directly to, and managers, if you ever need me, if anything's ever wrong, please come and tell me. But they protected the very managers who were doing the very thing that was in fact racist, comments, nitpicking, the very things that get you labeled as, the aggressive black woman or whatever. They encourage that kind of thing. So they protect the managers who are actually doing wrong.
And you will always be in the wrong.
And you will always be the troublemaker.
You will always, because you're already labeled the troublemaker.
You will always be the troublemaker because you spoke up. You actually reported them to HR. It then becomes an issue that, we got to get her out of here or something like that. But they can't fire you because you actually have tenure. You're in the union, blah, blah, blah. It's really it is not our job as black people, both men and women, to make white people feel better about what they've done and who they are.
And that is the real, that is the point.
Real thing.
That's the real thing. That's the thing. Yeah. I remember, this is interesting. And you talk about being accosted by people. This isn't a work situation, although I've had many work situations where people have said things where you're going, really? Are you really saying that? Mm-hmm. But when you're working in an industry where you don't have those kinds of accountability, so let's say you're working in the film industry. Right. People say all kinds of stuff in the film industry all the time, because most of the time people aren't going to go to SAG. They're not going to go to whatever guild, whatever union is, to talk about those things, even though they have those things in place to deal with them. People want to work. Yep. And people
and that's the same thing as sexual harassment.
Absolutely.
It is rampant in our industry.
And people
it is
say
rampant.
All kinds of crazy stuff. I told you the story about, there was a what do you call it? Not a designer, but the person, gosh. Of course, my language is the person
food set person, or
no. The wardrobe.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the wardrobe stylist was totally dressing people. Mm-hmm. White lady, wasp, white lady. Mm-hmm. I told you how she was calling the guy a wop.
A wop? What?
Yeah, she said something. It was so crazy. And me and this guy turned around because I was just like, did I just hear? I was like, what? I was like, did
I really hear that?
And I looked at her and so she's looking at us like, yeah, you want a piece? Do you know what I mean? She's looking at us like, and so the guy, not the guy who she called a wop, he had just taken his stuff and walked away. The other guy was like, no. You can't go around calling people that. She's like, what are you going to do about it? And that was basically the end of that conversation. And, and that's what people do. Or people say stupid things that they think is a joke, but they don't understand that they're creating a climate with their joke.
I call people on it. I gotta stop you there, because I have been around a lot of people who have said things, and it's supposed to be ha ha, hee hee, funny. I am, first of all, too old to excuse, shit that
kind of ignorance.
Okay, seriously. And I call people on, and then they look at me like, and then you can hear a pin drop, and it's like, it wasn't funny.
Because then all of a sudden you are this person who's not flexible.
Right.
You're overly sensitive.
Right. Overly sensitive. That's how things get desensitized, because you're not supposed to say anything about it. It's supposed to be okay because it's always been okay. And that's where that word gets overly used. Nobody is too sensitive. Okay. It's just that you are so used to white men.
Because the joke is never the joke about them.
Right. Them. It's always on us.
The joke is always this projection, and you are the joke. Yep. And we're all supposed to be comfortable with being the joke.
And I'm not okay with that.
And you shouldn't be okay with it, and nobody should be okay with it.